Hey guys, welcome back to Aunt Susie's Kitchen. Today I'm going to take you step by step on how to make this delicious roast beef dinner, complete with onion gravy and Parmesan crusted mashed potatoes. So let's get in the kitchen and get started. Using some coarse salt and granulated garlic powder, we're going to generously season both sides of this roast beef. This happens to be a 4-pound roast beef, and you can adjust this to a larger or smaller size, whatever you need for your family. Once we have it seasoned, we're going to place it in a roasting pan and get it ready for the oven. Now, because we're going to cook this roast beef on the rare side, not a lot of natural juices are going to come out of the meat. So we're going to start to build our onion gravy in the bottom of this pan. We'll catch whatever is going to come from the meat, but we're also going to cook some vegetables, and that'll help season as well. Just add a little salt. We've got here some onion, some celery, and some carrots, and maybe we put about a cup of water in there. Now I'm going to use a probe to keep an eye on the temperature of my meat. So I'm going to insert the probe halfway through so that it's inside the center of the meat, and go ahead and set my oven to 120 degrees internal temperature. Now, if you don't have a probe, you can certainly use an Insta-read thermometer. And here it is. It took about an hour on a 400-degree oven, but you definitely want to use a thermometer to check your temperatures. I like to slice my meat on my slicer, and if you don't have a slicer at home, you can definitely use a very sharp knife or an electric knife. Slice it as thinly as possible, and this will help keep the meat very tender. And leftovers make delicious sandwiches. So let's go ahead and make our onion gravy. I have 4 pats of butter in the bottom of a pan, and I'm going to go ahead and just dice this onion up into small pieces. Maybe I'm going to use about 1/2 of a medium-sized onion, and I'm going to saute that in the butter until it becomes soft and translucent. And I have some fresh dried rosemary from my garden. You might have saw that video where we went ahead and dried some herbs for the winter. Well, here we are. And I'm going to chop it really small and go ahead and add that. And let those two just simmer for a little bit together. And then we're going to further season that with a little bit of granulated garlic powder. I have about a teaspoon, and I also have a teaspoon of salt. It smells really good in here right now. Worcestershire sauce is going to also give it a little bit of flavor. And I'm going to use about 2 teaspoons of that and some fresh cracked black pepper. And we're going to let that cook a little bit until all those flavors start to come together. Now, these are the vegetables that were cooking in the bottom of the pan and all of the juices. And I'm going to go ahead now and just put 2 tablespoons of cornstarch in there. I like using cornstarch as opposed to a flour slurry because I find that there are less lumps. It incorporates easier. And I just personally prefer that for a thickening agent. Keep your gas on medium. And very slowly go ahead and pour the slurry inside the pot and keep whisking all the while, because as the liquid starts to boil, you'll see that it will start to thicken. And remember, it won't reach its full thickening capacity until it actually boils. And that's what's going on here. So this is looking good. And now that the onion and the rosemary has done its job seasoning the gravy, I'm going to use my immersion blender, and I'm going to try to finely reduce all of those chunky bits as fine as possible. And then I'll just put it through this fine mesh sieve, and then I will have a really smooth, silky gravy. And this doesn't take long at all. It's worth the extra step. You certainly don't have to strain it, but I prefer it. I don't want to bite on chunks of rosemary and onion, but you'll see that this is what was left behind, and it's definitely better off removed than left inside the gravy. Let's get those mashed potatoes ready. I have here 4 large russet potatoes that have been washed, peeled, diced, and then washed again. Please don't miss that final washing, that's very important. And I have them in a saucepan. I've covered them with cold water, and I'm generously salting them. I'm going to let them simmer until they break apart very easily when smashed with a fork. They're ready now. Once I strained the potatoes, I put them to the side while I got the milk mixture ready. This is 4 pats of butter and 1 1/4 cup of milk. And to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt and just let the butter start to melt and the milk become warm. Once the butter's just about completely melted, I'm going to add a little bit of fresh cracked black pepper, and then I'm going to put the potatoes back inside the liquid, and I'm going to start to mash them. Now, you might think that this is a lot of liquid, but I promise you it is not. Those potatoes are going to start to absorb them, and before you know it, there will be no liquid left in the pan. And you certainly can use less liquid if you want, or use more liquid if you like them a little bit smoother, but I found that this was just the right amount of liquid for that amount of potatoes. I preheated my boiler in my oven, and I'm going to get the potatoes ready. So I put them in a casserole dish. You don't have to butter it or anything. That's not necessary. They're not going to stick because they're not going to be in there for that long. And I have some imported Parmesan Reggiano cheese I'm going to grate over the top. You can use any kind of cheese you like here. I just happen to really like Parmesan cheese. And once I have a nice thin layer over the top, I'm then just also going to sprinkle some breadcrumbs that I've seasoned with a little bit of garlic powder and some fresh parsley. I'm going to take a pat of butter that I cut into tiny cubes, and I'm going to spread that over the top so that as the mixture starts to cook, the butter melts and everything gets nice and crispy. Look at that. My house smells amazing right now. So let's go ahead and plate this. Those potatoes came out amazing. Make sure you keep an eye on them. You don't want to let them burn. They only take about a minute or 2 under that broiler. That onion gravy, to die for. I suggest you make it any chance you get. And look at that. What an amazing meal. So that's it for now, guys. Thanks so much for coming by. Make sure you get in the kitchen and try this. Leave some comments below. Like and subscribe us, and don't forget to come back and see us again because there's always something good cooking in Aunt Susie's kitchen.